Alright folks, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I want to talk about perspective today, and about how having the right perspective in Galaxy of Heroes and changing your perspective, your view on things, or at least looking at them with a different perspective, can really help your account not just grow, but excel. I think a lot of times we get very kind of hyper-focused into looking at things only in one lens, that we don't like sit back and try to think, hey, if I look at this from Fat Phil's perspective, or Zareth, or Nooch, or Egnards, whoever it is, whatever content creator, Sanjita, Calvin Awesome, these guys, if you look at it from their lens, does it change? And would that help you make a better, more well-informed decision about your account? So, with that, we're going to kind of talk about the inspiration for this video, get into the areas where you can use perspective to your advantage and make better decisions about SWGO and be more successful, right? We'll talk about that. So please like and subscribe. Let's give a shout to our channel members for their continued support. If you're ever interested, y'all know where that link is. It's down below, along with a link to the Discord server. Please go check it out. Thank you guys for being a fantastic part of this community. I'm really looking forward to what this game has in store for us in 2025. And as we approach the holidays, Merry Christmas from the bottom of the Fat Phil family. We love you guys so much. Let's get in here. Let's talk about the game. Alright folks, so the inspiration for this video comes from me watching the college football playoff this weekend, and I was watching the best damn band in the land. For any of you who are not American, the best damn band in the land is the Ohio State Marching Band. So I was watching them in the pregame warm-up before the Tennessee game. And if you guys, for those of you who watched, you saw that there was that girl who was crying. She was in the marching band, right? And she has, like, I think it was I forget what instrument it was, but it was one of the brass instruments, and she was crying. And anybody who had, like, a parody sports account was like, oh, Ohio State fans are crying, they know it's over already. And then someone tweeted out, like, she's a senior, and this is her last time playing in the horseshoe. And not only is it her last time playing, she's making history. She's a part of the band that plays for the first time at a home playoff game in Ohio Stadium. Like, the weight of that moment was too much for her. And, like, when you look at it from that perspective, like, you get chills, you get emotional watching that. Because as an athlete, I can tell you that that last game is one of the hardest things. It's so challenging to walk off that field or enter it for the first time, for the last time, and realize that, this is it. So it was such a great moment. And then they showed her after the game smiling with a rose in her mouth because the Ohio State kicked the living shit out of Tennessee. All those Volunteers fans spent 2 weeks talking trash about how we'd be a mid-tier SEC team, and we treated them like they were Kent State. So suck it. Sorry. I've had a lot of pent-up aggression about that Ohio State team this year, and we finally played what was a good game, and man, did we beat the living shit out of Tennessee. I'm so happy about it. Anyway, that's change that perspective, that analogy, ranting, bragging, leads into Galaxy of Heroes. That by changing your perspective, by saying, hey, you know what, instead of like making fun of somebody, let's kind of put ourselves in their shoes, you could be a lot more successful. You can make better, well-informed decisions about your account. And this kind of really came into play when I had a bunch of channel members discussing Lightspeed bundles and if they weren't going to buy them and if they were going to buy them. And one of the ways that one of the guys said, he's like, Phil, I know you were talking about this Sith Eternal bundle for the Empire, that if you already had Piet and if you have TIE Bomber, it's not really worth it. Well, if I have those things, is it still worth it for me to buy? And I was like, well, it depends on your perspective. For me, I only see value in the time savings. And you need to take this into consideration that for the sake of getting Sith Eternal Emperor, you need Royal Guard at Relic 3, Tarkin, Stark, and Veers. All 4 of these guys only need Relic 3, and Krennic you only need Relic 4. So it's not like you need Relic 5 on these characters to get Sith Eternal, because that's what this bundle to me is truly about. Yes, it can help you get Lord Vader because of Royal Guard and Tarkin, but the value to me diminishes significantly if you already have the highest Kairatech character and the TIE Bomber. So again, just perspective, right? That for me, that's where I see it. For some of you, you're seeing this as a bunch of Relic 5s that you don't have to do. It's GP. It's going to get you closer to Sith Eternal. So it's all just about your perspective and what you are and aren't willing to do with your resources. And I'm not always the best judge of that, right? Because that's kind of why I say I will never encourage you or discourage you from spending money unless you give me enough perspective of your account and, financial situation that I would know, like, if you're a multi-millionaire, buy everything. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Another way to change your perspective is when you're free to play. You've got to change your perspective on how you spend resources. Sometimes it can be really helpful as a free to play to hear people who spend money on the game. What are they spending resources on? What did they buy? Because what they're spending money on means they see the most value in that's the most important resource. So if you hear someone who's spending a lot of money and they're like, yeah, every single time I see, mod packs, I'm buying them. That doesn't mean that you should be spending your hard-earned money on packs for mods. But if they're spending on those mods, maybe that tells you that if you've got some bonus crystals laying around, that spending them to improve your mods could be significant. Or if they're like, yeah, I go into Conquest and I make sure that I do as many refreshes of Datacrons. Well, maybe that's something that you can consider. Hey, they're seeing the value in Datacrons. Maybe I spend my bonus crystals there. So just putting yourself into the perspective of someone who maybe doesn't spend money, or does, can really change how you view the game. Like if, for somebody who doesn't spend money says to me, yeah, I take advantage of every single thing in, weekly shipments that, I buy these for Shard Shop, I buy these with ally points. Like that can help you understand that to them, what resources are they and aren't they willing to spend to improve their account, right? Maybe they're not willing to buy Kyrotech with this stuff, but they're willing to buy, Omegas or Omicrons with Get 3, So just kind of keep that perspective as you're building through the game, and it can really help you grow, and it can really make a difference in how you're spending resources and spending your time in the game and where value truly lies, right? That perspective is important. I want to give you another kind of perspective here, and this is something I've shown you guys before. So we're going to talk about how to compare your account and using the perspective of where to make upgrades. So let's flip over here, and these are my GAC opponents. So I'm going to move the fat face up to the top here to cover up Fat Phil. So right away, you guys can see there's Senator, Darkseid, and Cortex. So I have the least amount of galactic power here, right? If we scroll down a little bit. So I've got the least amount of galactic power there at 11.9 million. With the next closest being 12.4, then 12.9, and 13.1. So, pretty much I'm a million GP below, except for the one player who's, somewhat close to me. So right away you can see GP, we're down. We're down in Zetas to each account. And then we're down in total Omicrons significantly, with one of them having 66 total, and then the same amount of GAC Omicrons as me. So those are in Territory Wars or other game modes. Yeah, my Omicrons. And part of this is I don't spend, so I know some players will buy packs that have Omicrons in them. And I also know other players will use their Mark III or their Get 3. They'll use those on Omicrons, and that can help increase the amount that they have. That's not something that I do, but that could make a big difference in me getting extra Omicrons. The reason I don't spend my Mark III on that is because I need to spend that on gear and other stuff. Like that's what I've been, building my relics and things. I think eventually I will get to spending Omicrons, but that's just food for thought, right? When I see these accounts who are somewhat close to my galactic power or where I want to be, where are the differences? It's in Zetas and Omicrons right away. So that's a good, perspective that maybe my resources should go towards those things. Looking at mods, I actually had the best mods, which is not normal for me going up against players of this caliber. But I had not just from a speed perspective, but even offense percent. And I want to just brag a little bit on the offense percent. I had more 6% offense mods than these guys combined. And if you combine up all of their plus 4%, I only have 10 less than they do. So from a mod angle, I'm in really good shape. So part of me is looking at this like, hey, maybe 2025, I kind of back off on mods a little bit and I invest my resources to get more relics. Because as you guys scroll down a little bit and you see, relics is where I'm really, really down. Not just in the total number of like gear 13s, right? 241 to 222 to 263 and 265. But when you look at the relic levels and where they are, situated there, what you can see is I've got, again, I'm tied for the least amount of relic 9s. But relic 8s, I'm way below. And I found it interesting here against Senator. Really good guy. He and I were chatting about, after GAC, as well as Darkseid. I was chatting with him as well. Both really good players, really nice. What was funny is, like, you can see I've got more relic 7s than Senator does. But he's got, those relic 7s are sitting in the relic 8 category. So he took characters who I have at Relic 7 and just moved them to Relic 8. And he's got way more Relic 5s than I do. So using that perspective to figure out, all right, Phil, where can I upgrade my account if I want to be closer to these players? It's those high-level relics, right? It's, 9s and 8s. And even in, like, Relic 7s, right, you look to them. But also the Relic 5s that I've got these characters who are sitting at Relic 3 that just need to make their way to being Relic 5. And there's two that come to mind right away for me in OG Mando and Grief Karga. Those are two guys that I probably should boost those relic levels up. There's some other, Imperial Remnant, some Night Sister characters that'll eventually make their way there. But I just thought that that's an interesting perspective to look from. That, from this perspective, where if I was wanting to join a better guild or something, I'd need to look and figure out, hey, I need to increase relics, or I need to, make my account look more like it belongs. And so with that kind of thinking about guilds, I want to switch over to this spreadsheet that I had created a while ago. We're going to move the fat face back down here. So this is something that I created to basically judge my account and say, what size guilds make sense for my account? And I've added a few things here. And this can help give you perspective as to, how should you look for, should you look for a new guild? And how can you do it, right? I use this, and again, by using that perspective, you can figure out, like, are you in the right size guild for your account and what you want to do? So, here's my actual guild size. We're at 618 million, and again, just to flip back over to the game real quick to see if that's changed. Let's go here, right, and let's see. 618, all right, it's changed 16 GP, so we're right there, right? We're right on there, so that's good. All right, so then what we do, so you enter that, current guild. That means the average player is 12.3, almost 12.4 million GP, and my current GP is 11.8, so I'm about 500,000 lower than the guild average. So why that 500,000 is, obviously, like, I'm in the lower part of my guild. So what that means is I need to play, not like I'm an 11.8 million GP player, but 12.3. So when you go back to this graphic, I need to more treat myself like Senator is here. That I need to be making the upgrades that he's made, where, okay, my Galactic Legends maybe need to get to Relic 8. Maybe I need to add Relic 9 to a few of them. Like, the things that he's done, that's kind of the upgrades that I should be making. That I can use him as this guide, this baseline to say, where can I improve my account, right? So, again, wanted to just show that. And so then what you would say is, all right, well, based on my average GP, if I just want to be in a guild of people who is around my galactic power, I would be in a 593 million power guild. Again, you're just taking your GP, multiplying it by 50. So my current guild is 200, about 24, million above where my average should be. And that's a good number for me. Like, that's a number that I feel good about because I always say I'm an above average player, right? Like, not trying to brag, but I'm an above average player. I don't think, to go to the maximum size guild I would go to, which is a million above my average. So if you add a million, you get to 12.876. The maximum guild would be 643. I do not want to play like a 12.8 million GP player. Looking at Darkside here, like, I do not have, I can't make all those changes. 103 Relic 7s, 35 Relic 8s, 19 Relic 9s. Like, I'm not ready for that level of investment yet. My account, I can't play like that. I can't compete with accounts like that and be expected to complete combat missions and operations at the level that Darkside is. So, that can say, all right, you know what? Maybe I reduce the size of the guild that I want to be in. And then also you can go the other way to say, well, what's the minimum GP you should be? And for me, that's about a million lower than your than the average, right? So, hey, I could get into a guild of 543, which is an average of 10.8. And you can use that to say, hey, like, just, you got to be honest. Use the perspective, like, who are your GAC opponents? Are your GAC opponents an average, comparative to you? Are you an above average galactic power size in your GAC matchups? Are you below? And that can kind of help you figure out the kind of guild you belong in, right? Based on, GAC is the easiest to measure it because it gives you, like, hey, here's your GP opponents. But another way to think about that is just where do you finish in your guild in certain events? If I, flip the perspective a little bit, right? Perspective is everything. That, all right, well, where did I finish in, territory battles? Where do I finish in the raid, right? If I go to our raid and I look at the leaderboard. Where am I finishing? All right, I'm, roughly middle of the pack. I'm not doing anything crazy, but I'm in that range of there's people who could score just as much as me if they put in the same level of effort like Wags. As long as we hit our that box, we don't care. But again, just perspective. Like if I was finishing down here, right, maybe I need to make some changes and, do better, right? Where I finish in territory wars, all of those things can be really important to kind of decide, am I in the right guild? It's, shift that perspective a little bit and how you can, best make your account. So I know I've kind of talked about a lot of stuff there and you're like, Phil, does any of this really matter to me? And it does. Because when you just sit there with this mindset of, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, you'll end up missing some important upgrades. Like, I will tell you 1000% as a player, if there's one content creator who's helped me the most, it was Xerath. And how I got there was from watching his free-to-play GACs on his account. He had his, like, mid-tier account, I think it was. Because it wasn't a free-to-play account, but it was a mid-tier account. It was more to my size. And I saw him doing things, and I was like, hey, I could copy some of that. I can steal some of his tactics and maybe make this, account better. And so I learned a lot. And I got a new perspective on how he viewed Grand Arena. And that, again, helped me get better at this game. So shout out Xerath for that. But hopefully that gives you guys some perspective, right? I know I've said perspective a lot. I'm overusing it. But hopefully that gives you guys an idea of how to transition in 2025. Put yourself in the shoes of your GAC opponents. Put yourself in the shoes of your guild. Where do you actually belong? And use all those metrics that you have available to figure that out. That player comparison, guys, I want to go back to that. And we'll end on that page there. When you go to this player comparison, there's so much good information in here. Don't just look and say, oh, this guy's Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has more offense than mine. I'm not good. Well, it doesn't have as much speed. Doesn't have as much health. They're probably using offense sets. They're, oh, this guy's Rey's got more offense. I'm trash. Well, no, he's got more offense, but it doesn't have nearly as much health. So maybe he's using, look at the, entirety of that thing. And then you could even say, oh, you know what? Well, they've got a higher relic character, so they're going to get more stats. You've got to use all of those pieces of information to develop the expectation, the perception of, hey, if I look at it from the perspective of where are my stats in comparison to theirs, knowing I'm a relic 7 and they're a relic 8, or knowing that they're relic 9 and I'm relic 8 or relic 7, wherever it is, it can really help you. Like, look at Starkiller here. We'll end on Starkiller. This guy's Starkiller has 10.6 million, or 10.6 thousand offense. I'm at 10.2. But he's at relic 9 and I'm at relic 7. I'll leave you guys with that one. That by 10.2 compared to 10.6, not that much. If I went to relic 9, I would be ahead of that. That's how you can use the perspective. Shift it a little bit. Look at more than just the numbers and look at the relics as well. And that can help you figure out where your upgrades lie. And that I said, it's not in the mods. It's in the actual just relics themselves is where I need to, shift my perspective and say that's where I need to make upgrades in order to act like I'm an account that's, 12.4 million GP to be more average in my guild. So that's the end of the video. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. If you're still watching, Wampa is king in the comments. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.